Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 31, Safety Hazards with PLA Plastics in 3D Printing. In this episode, we'll sit down just like the title says and talk about the safety hazards of PLA plastics. In episode 29, we did a very general overview of 3D printing, the safety hazards there. Episode 30, we then covered the ABS plastics in 3D printing. We learned that styrene fumes are going to be generated in episode 30, which is a possible carcinogen. So we want to do everything we can to not breathe those fumes. Now let's sit down and talk about the PLA plastics that can, the fumes that can also be liberated in this episode. So let's go with a little definition of PLA. Um, Polylactic acid is a biodegradable and commonly used material in 3D printing. It is generally considered to be a safer option compared to other materials like ABS, but like all things, you still have a couple of hazards out there. The big ones we'll talk about are going to be the fumes generated from the process, fire hazard, and there's going to be skin and eye irritation, both in the processing and post-processing stage then. When we talk about the fumes, so the fumes, of course, are still going to be hazardous, but less harmful than ABS ones. But with any time that you're going to generate any kind of fume, not just with 3D printers, but basically anything in life, using a well ventilated space or come up with some kind of enclosed chamber, a air filtration system, something where you're going to control the fumes. Probably not going to really control the generation of fumes, but what you're going to do is control the fumes that are generated to ensure that they just don't enter the human body. You expel them to the general air. You just, send them outside, catch them in a filter. You do something with these fumes. So PLA is a flammable material and it can catch on fire with a very high temperature heat source. So just like in the previous two episodes, use these 3D printers and make the area as fire safe as you possibly can right from the get-go. Put it by a sprinkler. If you have a sprinkler, you attend it as much as you possibly can too. Not realistic sometimes if it's a super long print, 20 or 30 hours, but do everything you possibly can, because if you do have that runaway temperature excursion on this thing, you want to go back and minimize the potential damage or any spread. So in an ideal world, of course, it never catches on fire. Everything works out great, and all that. But if it does, how do we go back and minimize that to make sure that it's only going to be the 3D printer that's going to be affected and not spread to the surrounding workplace? Or, of course, if we have these in our home, we don't want to burn down our own home too at the same time. Let's look at the skin and eye irritation. Just like the last one with ABS plastics, you can have skin and eye irritation. I want you to wear gloves and eyewear whenever you're handling, and like all things, after you handle these materials, you wash your hands anyway. You hope you don't have any holes in the gloves. You hope you're doing really good hygiene. But like all things, you go back and always wash your hands afterwards then. So post-processing, this is when we're going to be sanding and generating some more fumes. There's even going to be dust, kind of dependent on, are you doing a very small sand with sandpaper, or are you using some form of mechanical sander, a Dremel, a something else as you're going back and generating this. So when this happens, of course, we want to wear some form of a mask. We want to enclose it in something. We're catching the fumes. Of course, we're obviously doing all this in a well-ventilated area. So we want to do everything we can. Well, first off, we want to try and minimize the generation of fumes. Anytime we're sanding, that's not always possible given the task that we have to do. But if that does happen, we want to control where these things go then. So during the post-processing and sanding phase then. So, and that is it for episode Number 31 is just nice, short, and sweet, where we wanted to sit down and really talk about the chemical hazards out there, PLA plastics. So episode number 31. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Have a safe day.